Your resume seems embellished, the interviewer said dismissively, barely glancing up. I doubt you've actually handled major accounts like these. 15 years of relentless work were brushed aside in one breath. I felt my chest tighten. The weight of my dwindling savings pressed on me like a vice, but I straightened in my chair. Every achievement listed is genuine, I said quietly. The market expansion strategy one developed. Anyone can write numbers on paper. She cut me off with a smile so thin it could slice steel. Without backing from a prestigious firm, these claims are questionable. 8 months ago, I was directing international projects across 5 countries. Then the company changed hands. New ownership swept in with their vision and outwent every experienced woman on the leadership team. They were replaced by a circle of loyal yes-men. This was my 73rd interview since. The interviewer, Philomena Oswald, Chief Talent Officer of TGR Advisory, tapped my resume with her pen. This client portfolio seems particularly far-fetched. At that moment, the side door opened. A tall figure in an impeccably cut suit stepped in and froze mid-stride. "It's you," he said, a genuine smile breaking across his face. "The miracle worker." I blinked. "You saved us last year," he continued, stepping forward. "Every consultant said our product line was a lost cause until you came in. Your strategy turned everything around." Philomena paled. "That's precisely why I'm here today," he went on, turning to her. "We're ready to triple our investment. But only if she joins your team. That would seal the deal." The room fell into stunned silence. "Before I continue, I need to ask, have you ever been underestimated? Had someone look at you and decide your worth before you even spoke? If you felt that sting, stay with me. Because what happened next didn't just change my life. It reshaped an entire industry. My name is Aviva Renault. I'm 42, and I built my career in international market strategy from scratch. Raised in a quiet Midwestern town where girls were expected to marry young and stay close to home, I defied every expectation. I worked 3 jobs to pay my way through business school. I taught myself to see what others missed, patterns buried in market chaos, empathy hidden in consumer data. That became my signature. But in that stark white interview room, none of it seemed to matter. After Elias Bowen, CEO of one of North America's fastest-growing consumer goods companies, left the room, Philomena's demeanor shifted entirely. Her spine relaxed. Her voice softened. "Well, that was certainly unexpected," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Elias is notoriously hard to impress. Tell me more about how you worked with his team." I gave her the facts, nothing more. How I'd identified Southeast Asian markets her firm's consultants had dismissed. How I built a strategy tailored to cultural nuances they overlooked. She nodded as if she hadn't spent 20 minutes questioning my competence. "Fascinating. And the results? 37% growth in the first 2 quarters. Double initial projections." She scribbled notes. "Very impressive. We should fast-track your application. In fact, we may consider you for a senior director position. Compensation would reflect that." The sudden shift from contempt to courtship was dizzying. Just moments ago, she'd called my achievements far-fetched. Now I was being offered the keys to the kingdom. She kept talking, but I was already somewhere else, in a memory. 8 months earlier. The day Preston, the new CEO at Crest Innovations, called me into his office. "Aviva," he said, eyes on his cuticles, "your track record is stellar. But we're going in a different direction. A more aggressive model. Different leadership chemistry." Translation: the boys' club was closing ranks. Within 6 weeks, every female director was replaced by men from Preston's network. Most had thinner resumes, but thicker handshakes. My severance was generous. More hush than honor. At first, I believed in my own reputation. That experience and results would speak for themselves. But after 73 interviews, I had met countless versions of Philomena, people who couldn't reconcile what I had achieved with what they expected someone like me to look like. "We'll have an offer for you by tomorrow," Philomena said, practically glowing. "After Elias's endorsement, it's a formality." I looked at her, really looked. Just hours ago, she had called me a liar. Now, she was rewriting the entire conversation in real time. "That's quite a change in tone," I said softly. She laughed, a bit too quickly. Well, Elias is our highest billing client. His opinion carries weight. And my experience didn't? Her smile faltered. We have to be thorough in our vetting. Many candidates exaggerate. You weren't vetting me, I interrupted, calm but firm. You decided I was unqualified the moment I walked in. That's not true, she said, color rising in her cheeks. I was asking tough questions. No, you were making accusations. Let's call it what it was. She straightened a stack of already neat papers. Perhaps there was a miscommunication. What matters is, we're very interested now. I stood and gathered my portfolio. I appreciate that. When can I expect next steps? Tomorrow afternoon. I'll call you personally. And she did. The offer was generous. Far above the advertised range. I asked for the weekend to consider it. She agreed. But that weekend changed everything. Because by Saturday morning, I realized something that shifted the balance entirely. I didn't need their approval. They needed mine. And I wasn't done yet. The compensation package from TGR would have solved my immediate financial concerns. But something felt wrong. Deeply wrong. I thought about all the talented, qualified people, especially women over 40, who had been dismissed without ceremony, without a champion in the room to speak for them. Then my phone chimed. A message from Nisha Dar, my former colleague from Crest Innovations and one of the sharpest minds in data intelligence. Still on for tomorrow? I've got news. The next morning at our usual cafe, Nisha radiated excitement. At 56, she had a magnetic energy, and 3 decades of wisdom sharpened her insight like a blade. I've been consulting for 3 of our former Crest clients, she said, her eyes lighting up. And they all asked me the same question. Why isn't there a firm that combines data intelligence with real cultural insight? She leaned in. The big firms have numbers, but no soul. They miss the human story buried beneath the data. I nodded. I'd seen it firsthand. At Crest, our nuanced recommendations had often been dismissed by executives who couldn't see past the spreadsheet. So, Nisha continued, what if we created that firm? You, me, maybe Yara for her digital expertise. Yara Okonkwo, our brilliant digital transformation lead. Another casualty of the acquisition. Another voice cut out of the room. You mean start our own company? I asked. Exactly. Between the 3 of us, we have contacts across 4 continents. My severance is still untouched. I'm guessing yours is too. Without a word, I pulled out the TGR offer letter and slid it across the table. Nisha scanned the figure and whistled. Impressive. But your face tells me you're not celebrating. I can't shake what happened, I admitted. The interviewers spent 20 minutes telling me I was essentially a fraud until their client recognized me. Now they're desperate to hire me. Because your value is only real if someone important says it is, Nisha said, cutting to the heart of it. I looked down at the offer. And for the first time in months, I felt something stir. Energy. Clarity. Defiance. Maybe you just gave me the alternative, I whispered. Over the next 3 hours, we sketched the blueprint for what would become Prism Strategies. Our vision. A consultancy that specialized in the markets the big firms deemed too complex. Regions that were always filtered through a Western lens, flattened, misunderstood, and ignored. By Monday morning, I had declined TGR's offer with a respectful email. This decision isn't about compensation. I'm pursuing a path that aligns more fully with my values. Thank you for your time. Philomena's reply came within minutes. This is disappointing. Perhaps we can increase the compensation. Elias specifically asked about you this morning. I closed my laptop with a finality that felt like freedom. The first 6 months at Prism were the most demanding and fulfilling of my career. Nisha, Yara, and I pooled our severance packages to fund the startup. We worked out of Nisha's converted garage. Our only luxury was purpose. Then came our first break. Damon Reeves, a mid-level manager I had once trained, reached out. He remembered how I'd approached similar challenges back in the day. We've been pushing to expand into Southeast Asia, but our consultants say the markets aren't ready. Would Prism consider an alternative assessment? The budget was small, but the opportunity was perfect. We spent 3 weeks developing a deep, culturally attuned market entry strategy. When we presented it, the tone in the room shifted from guarded to electrified. Two vice presidents not originally scheduled even showed up midway. "This is exactly what we've been trying to articulate," one of them said. "You've quantified the opportunity and the risk, and addressed the cultural nuances head-on." That one project led to 3 referrals, each larger than the last. By month 4, we'd hired 2 analysts and moved into a small downtown office. Then came the industry conference that would change everything. The Global Market Summit, the most influential gathering in our sector. Normally, a tiny firm like ours wouldn't draw notice, but Yara had previously chaired the technology panel. She leveraged her old contacts to secure us a small slot on the secondary stage. Our topic? Invisible markets, identifying overlooked growth opportunities. We presented case studies. We showed how the dominant firms consistently undervalued entire regions and demographics because they lacked lived insight. We didn't intend to be provocative. But then Elias Bowen stood up during the Q&A. "Your methodology challenges everything the major firms have told my board. How confident are you in your projections?" I recognized him immediately, but kept my expression neutral. "Our models have outperformed traditional projections by 23 to 41%, I said evenly. "Every figure today is backed by client-validated data." Elias smiled. "You're the strategist who turned our business around last year. I'm curious, why aren't you with TGR? I recommended you to them personally." The room went still. TGR was a major conference sponsor. Their CEO, Gerard Walsh, was scheduled to give the keynote the next morning. I chose my words carefully. "I decided to pursue a different opportunity." Elias nodded. "Well, their loss appears to be substantial. My team would like to learn more. Are you taking new clients?" Selectively, I said, with a calm that masked my racing pulse. What happened next was a whirlwind. After our presentation, attendees who had ignored our slot asked for private meetings. Reporters sought interviews. Major firms started eyeing us not as a novelty, but as a threat. And that evening, at the networking reception, it all came full circle. I was mid-conversation with a potential partner when I saw her, Philomena Oswald, standing across the room. Beside her, Gerard Walsh, CEO of TGR. Both of them watching me. Then Elias approached with purpose. Loud enough for the surrounding crowd to hear. "Aviva," he said, "I've just spoken with our board. We want to transition our entire Apex strategy portfolio to Prism." I held his gaze. "That's a substantial portfolio," I said slowly, aware of how many eyes were now on us. Elias smiled. "Worth every penny." I could feel Philomena's gaze burning through me. Her expression had gone pale. Gerard stood frozen. The power had shifted. "Results," Elias had said plainly. "We've been dissatisfied with our current consultant's limited vision." I felt Philomena's glare from across the room. Her whisper to Gerard Walsh, CEO of TGR, looked urgent, her entire posture rigid with alarm. "We'd be honored to explore the opportunity," I said to Elias, steady and professional. "Excellent. Fair warning," Elias added, leaning in. "I've already mentioned your firm to several of my peers. Expect some calls." He walked away. Immediately, Gerard and Philomena moved to intercept him. Their exchange looked tense, Elias shaking his head again and again. No amount of spin could fix what they had just witnessed, a public pivot of power. Later that evening, Gerard approached me at the bar, nursing a strained smile. "Aviva, isn't it?" "Gerard Walsh." "I understand there may have been some confusion during your interview process with us." "No confusion," I said, keeping my tone even. "Your talent officer made her assessment clear." Until Elias changed her mind. He winced slightly. "Sometimes our process fails to identify exceptional talent. I'd like to personally apologize and explore whether there's still potential for collaboration." I looked him directly in the eye. "That's generous of you. But Prism is my focus now. Perhaps a strategic partnership," he offered quickly. "Your boutique insights paired with our global resources could be powerful." Before I could answer, Nisha appeared by my side like clockwork. "Apologies, but our next appointments arrived." There was no appointment. But her timing was surgical. Of course, I said, offering Gerard a polite smile. It was nice meeting you. That conference was a turning point. Within 3 months, Prism had signed 7 major clients, including Elias's company. Our team expanded to 17 people, each chosen for not fitting the industry's mold. Not just resumes, but resilience defined our hiring. If you're still reading, take a deep breath. Because this is where the revenge begins. Our rapid growth demanded new space. We moved into a sunlit converted warehouse, nothing flashy, but functional, open, and honest. I insisted our conference room have glass walls. Transparency wasn't just a value. It was a warning. 6 months later, we had tripled our clients again. Prism now had 28 team members. Most firms were busy recruiting from the same 5 elite schools. We hunted where no one else looked. Vera, our research director, had been rejected by 12 firms despite inventing a market prediction model now used in retail across Asia. Milo, a 60-year-old former teacher, had insights into consumer psychology no analytics dashboard could replicate. What made Prism disruptive wasn't just our hiring, it was our lens. Traditional firms viewed emerging markets through a Western filter. We flipped it. We started with the culture, then brought the numbers. The results? Surpassing industry benchmarks by 30 to 50%. Then came the punch. 13 months in, Yara burst into my office breathless. You need to see this. She slammed her tablet down in front of me. The industry newsletter headline read, TGR launches new division, Horizon Markets. The copy beneath was chilling. TGR was launching a specialty unit to focus on undervalued international markets with unique cultural considerations, word for word, our language. They're copying our entire approach, Yara said, arms crossed. I scanned the article and froze. Leading the new division? Philomena Oswald. The same woman who said your work was, what was it again? Yara asked, jaw tight. Far-fetched. The very same, I whispered. Hours later, Nisha came into my office with worse news. They've been meeting with 3 of our largest clients, she said, offering similar services at a 30% discount. They're undercutting us? I asked. They're prepared to take a loss just to bleed us dry. I leaned back in my chair, thinking, they can copy our brochures. They can steal our pricing. But they can't replicate our people. Or our thinking. I looked at the whiteboard where our secret weapon still sat in draft form, the framework. Nisha and I had been developing a next-generation assessment tool, a hiring model that would reveal untapped talent. It didn't rely on elite degrees or perfect resumes. It measured performance through scenario-based challenges. We were still testing it. But now it was time to move fast. It's still in beta, Nisha warned. Then we refine it in real time, I said. This is no longer about business. It's about validation. For 3 weeks, we didn't sleep properly. We tore down and rebuilt our models, ran simulations, piloted versions with 2 small clients. When we finally launched it in full, the results shattered expectations. These candidates never would have passed our filters, one innovation director admitted, stunned. They don't fit our hiring patterns. Exactly, I told him. Excellence doesn't wear a uniform. While TGR flooded inboxes with their version of our pitch, we quietly shifted the entire industry conversation. Not just where to grow, but who should lead that growth. 2 months later, an unexpected email landed in my inbox. Darian Winters, TGR's Director of Client Services, requested a meeting. Curious, I agreed. Darian arrived on time, crisp suit, tense expression. After brief pleasantries, he got to the point. TGR would like to discuss acquiring Prism strategies. Our board believes there's significant synergy between our firms. I kept my expression unreadable. An interesting offer, I replied coolly. Would you like to hear what happened in that meeting and how Aviva turns the table again, this time not just on TGR, but someone from her own family who tries to sell her out? Because Prism's real battle is just beginning, and the next betrayal won't come from an outsider. May I ask what prompted this sudden interest? I asked. Darian Winters, TGR's Director of Client Services, adjusted his tie. Your growth has been remarkable, particularly your methodologies, especially the talent assessment framework. It's generating significant attention across the industry. He hesitated, as if choosing his next words carefully. The same framework TGR is now attempting to duplicate? I asked, letting the silence stretch. There may have been some parallel development, he said awkwardly. But leadership recognizes your team's unique approach, one that could be very valuable to our organization. I met his eyes. And who exactly proposed the acquisition? It was a board-level decision, he replied, looking past me. Gerard Walsh is personally interested in discussing terms. I nodded slowly. Tell Gerard I'm open to a conversation. But I'd like the initial meeting to include whoever will oversee integration if an acquisition moves forward. That would be Philomena Oswald, Darian said. She's now our Executive Vice President of Strategy and Integration. I smiled without humor. Perfect. Please arrange the meeting. When Darian left, Yara and Nisha swarmed me with questions. You're not actually considering selling to them, are you? Yara asked, disbelief written all over her face. I'm considering listening, I replied. Nisha studied my face. You're planning something. I just smiled faintly. Let's say I'm curious to see how Philomena handles sitting across from someone she once tried to erase. The meeting was set for the following Thursday at TGR's headquarters. I arrived 15 minutes early, accompanied by Nisha and our general counsel, Imani Ak, a woman as brilliant as she was unshakable. We were escorted to a sleek glass-walled conference room. Gerard Walsh greeted us with polished charm, while Philomena stood behind him, her smile tight and brittle. Aviva, wonderful to meet again, Gerard said. Thank you for considering our proposal. I appreciate your interest in Prism, I replied. I believe you already know Nishidar, my co-founder and chief intelligence officer, and this is Imani, our general counsel. After the introductions, we took our seats. Philomena had positioned herself directly across from me. A deliberate choice. Before we begin, I said, I'd like to understand TGR's vision for Prism post-acquisition. Specifically, how our methodologies and team would integrate with your current structure. Gerard nodded and turned to Philomena. She straightened. We envision Prism as our innovation hub. Your methodologies would be scaled across our global operations. Your core team would lead the knowledge transfer to our existing departments. And our talent assessment framework? I asked. A fascinating initiative, she replied coolly, though we would need to align it with our established recruitment parameters to ensure quality consistency. I noted how she deliberately avoided naming the framework's true purpose to challenge those very recruitment norms. Could you elaborate? I asked, voice calm. What do you mean by quality consistency? She smiled without warmth. TGR has built its reputation on a certain caliber of professional. While we appreciate fresh perspectives, we must maintain the standards our clients expect. Interesting, I said. And who would oversee this alignment? My division would handle integration, Philomena said. We'd work closely with your team, though ultimately, all hiring would follow TGR's protocols. Gerard jumped in. We're prepared to make a very generous offer. Your team would receive significant retention bonuses. And you personally would hold a senior leadership role. Reporting to? I asked. Philomena would be your direct supervisor, Gerard answered. She oversees all specialized divisions. I nodded thoughtfully. Thank you for clarifying. Then I opened my laptop. I'd like to share something before we talk numbers. On the screen, I displayed a time-lapse visualization of client performance, those who had implemented Prism's methods, compared to industry averages. It was undeniable. Prism's clients hadn't just grown, they had leaped. These aren't marginal improvements, I said. They represent a fundamental shift in how companies identify and develop market potential. Gerard leaned forward. This is extraordinary. I clicked to the next visualization. This, I said, is the demographic and experiential makeup of the teams behind those results. The contrast was stark. Prism teams looked nothing like the uniform panels that filled TGR's boardrooms. Our success doesn't come despite our approach to talent, I said. It comes because of it. We don't thrive by making everyone fit the same mold. We win by building teams whose diverse perspectives expose opportunities others miss. Philomena's jaw tightened. While diversity initiatives are important, TGR must ensure client confidence through its established standards. I tilted my head. Are those the same standards that led you to dismiss my experience as far-fetched during our interview? Silence swept the room. Gerard blinked, eyes moving to Philomena, who suddenly found great interest in her water glass. I think there's been a misunderstanding about that interaction, she said stiffly. There's no misunderstanding, I said. You decided my work wasn't credible until Elias Bowen validated it. And now you want to apply that same flawed judgment to my entire team. Gerard cleared his throat. Perhaps we should shift focus to the financials. Actually, I said, reaching into my folder, I have a counterproposal. I slid a set of documents across the table. These are our terms if Prism is to consider an acquisition. Gerard scanned the first page, eyebrows rising. This is unconventional. So is our company, I replied. Philomena frowned as she read. This stipulates Prism would operate as an independent division with complete autonomy over hiring and methodology. Correct, I said. And this clause, Gerard added, requires creation of a new department dedicated to inclusive hiring, with authority to override standard recruitment processes. Also correct. Philomena's voice turned sharp. That's not how TGR operates. Exactly, I said calmly. That's why you needed us in the first place. Would you like me to continue with the fallout of this meeting and how Aviva's strategic counterattack not only exposes TGR from the inside, but unravels a long-buried family betrayal that hits closer to home than she ever expected? Because the next chapter is not just corporate, it's personal. And the betrayal? It starts with someone Aviva never thought would turn on her. Also correct, I confirmed. Philomena's voice turned to ice. This effectively dismantles our entire talent acquisition approach. It transforms it, I replied calmly. Based on proven results. Gerard, now flipping through the final pages of my proposal, glanced up. And you would personally oversee this department? Yes, I said. With full executive authority and direct board reporting. Philomena carefully set the document down. This is completely unacceptable, she said, her tone clipped. You're essentially demanding control over how TGR hires across the entire organization. I'm proposing a system that finds excellence wherever it exists, I said evenly. Something your current model consistently fails to do. Gerard looked conflicted. Aviva, your results are impressive, but this goes far beyond a traditional acquisition. You approached us, I reminded him. Because Prism's perspective creates exceptional value. If you want that value, you need to accept what makes it possible. Gerard exhaled slowly. We'll need to discuss this internally. Of course, I said, closing my folder. We'll await your response. 3 days later, Darian called to request another meeting. This time, Gerard arrived alone. Your conditions have created quite a stir, he admitted once we settled into my office. Philomena was strongly opposed. I'm not surprised. But the board reviewed your performance data. The results are undeniable. They've authorized me to continue negotiations with some adjustments. He presented a counterproposal. Most of my core terms remained, though the scope of the talent department's authority was narrowed slightly and the implementation timeline extended. This represents a significant cultural shift for TGR, Gerard explained. The board just needs reassurance it'll be introduced responsibly. And Philomena's position? She's voiced reservations. But she'll support the board's final decision. 2 weeks of negotiations followed. The final agreement upheld my demand for an autonomous, inclusive hiring division with real authority. The timeline stretched to 12 months, but progress benchmarks were built in. 1 month later, the acquisition was announced. The industry buzzed, not just about Prism's valuation, but about the unprecedented structure that gave a startup executive-level influence over a legacy firm. On my first official day at TGR headquarters, I arrived early for the company-wide meeting where Gerard would introduce me and the new talent initiative. As I reviewed my slides, the door creaked open. Philomena Oswald entered, poised as ever. Congratulations on your new position, she said, with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. Thank you, I replied. I'm looking forward to working with you. I want to be clear, she said softly, stepping closer. I may have been wrong about you personally, but TGR's standards exist for a reason. Not everyone who claims exceptional abilities truly has them. I agree completely, I said. Which is why my department will rely on evidence-based assessments, not assumptions. Client confidence depends on maintaining professional expectations, she warned. Like dismissing someone based on how they look or where they went to school? I asked. Her jaw tightened. I've been in this industry for over 20 years. My judgment has shaped TGR's reputation. Then you'll appreciate that good systems evolve with better data. And the data shows your system is leaving talent behind. My job is to fix that. She paused. We'll see how the board feels after 6 months of your experiments. They're not experiments, I said, stepping past her. They're proven methodologies. But you're right about one thing, the results will speak for themselves. An hour later, I stood beside Gerard at the side of the auditorium stage. Nearly 300 employees filled the seats. Philomena sat front row impassive. Gerard's introduction was brief but enthusiastic. Then he stepped aside. I approached the podium and let my eyes scan the room. Many of you are wondering why TGR acquired Prism, I began. And why the acquisition came with such unconventional terms. I clicked to the first slide, performance data from Prism's clients versus industry averages. The difference was staggering. These results weren't luck. They weren't tradition. They were achieved by challenging the assumptions about what markets matter, what strategies work, and more importantly, what people are worth listening to. Next slide, side-by-side comparisons of traditional hires and the diverse backgrounds of Prism's top performers. The initiative I'm launching isn't about lowering standards, I said. It's about realizing that for too long, we've been measuring the wrong things. We've mistaken credentials for capability, pedigree for potential. From the front row, Philomena's expression remained a taut mask. In the coming months, I continued, every hiring manager will be trained in new assessment techniques. Every rejection will require evidence-based documentation explaining why the candidate cannot perform the job, not why they don't look the part. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some of you may feel uneasy, I added. That's natural. Change is never comfortable. But this isn't about erasing TGR's culture. It's about expanding it. Seeing value where we were taught not to look. I ended with the slide showing future projections based on Prism's model. This transformation starts today. Applause swelled through the room, some polite, some genuine. But I saw the shift. And I saw Philomena slip out the side door before the applause ended. The resistance came fast. Senior managers complained the new requirements were too burdensome. Philomena echoed their concerns in closed-door meetings. But 6 weeks later, our first cohort of new hires, chosen through Prism's framework, delivered their initial reports. The results? Unmatched performance. Across every department, they outperformed traditional hires by measurable margins in innovation, productivity, and client satisfaction. At the quarterly board meeting, I presented the data with Nisha and Imani beside me. This isn't just ethical, I said. It's effective. The data was unambiguous. Recognizing overlooked talent was not a feel-good initiative. It was a strategic advantage. And then came the final twist. Would you like me to continue with part 6, the family clause, where Aviva uncovers a betrayal not from a competitor, but from within her own family, a betrayal that threatens everything she's rebuilt? This next chapter merges personal and professional vengeance in a way that shocks even Aviva. As I concluded my quarterly presentation, one of the board members turned to Philomena Oswald. Why haven't we been hiring this way all along? Philomena sat still. Her silence was louder than any excuse. 3 months later, TGR's client satisfaction scores hit the highest levels in company history. Our inclusive hiring model hadn't just reshaped the company, it had reshaped outcomes. The people once deemed unqualified were now driving TGR's most innovative work. But the moment that stayed with me came exactly 1 year after the acquisition. I was working late in my office alone, except for the quiet hum of the building after hours, when a soft knock interrupted the silence. I looked up to see Philomena standing in the doorway. Her usual confidence was gone. "Do you have a minute?" she asked. "Of course," I said, gesturing to the chair across from me. She entered slowly, sitting with the careful posture of someone unsure if they belong. "The Eastern Europe expansion project," she began. "The team you assembled, they identified opportunities no one else even thought to look for." "They did excellent work," I said. She nodded slowly. "One of the analysts, Teresa, I rejected her application twice before your system flagged her." I said nothing. "She's brilliant," Philomena admitted. "And I passed her over because she didn't match the profile I thought meant qualified." She paused, eyes on her hands. "I've been reviewing the applicants I personally rejected over the last 5 years. Many of them were later hired through your department." She finally looked up. "The pattern is disturbing." "In what way?" I asked gently. "I consistently dismissed people who didn't fit a certain mold, regardless of their actual capability." Her voice softened. "Including you." I let the silence stretch, watching her struggle with the full weight of her admission. "I need to ask you something," she said finally. "When you proposed the acquisition, was it always about changing how we identify talent? Was that the real goal?" I chose my words carefully. "When you dismissed me that day, it wasn't just personal. You were reinforcing a system that routinely overlooks excellence that doesn't look familiar. My goal wasn't to replace you or prove you wrong. It was to make sure that system couldn't keep hurting people who had something valuable to give." She nodded slowly. "I've requested a transfer," she said quietly. "I'll be leading our Asia-Pacific division." She stood, then hesitated at the door. "I just wanted you to know. I understand now what you were trying to accomplish." "Philomena," I said gently. She turned. "Excellence comes in many forms, including the ability to recognize when our judgment needs recalibration." For the first time in the years I'd known her, a genuine, almost bittersweet smile touched her lips. Perhaps that's the most important skill of all. 2 years after Prism was founded, what began as my personal quest for professional redemption had evolved into something far bigger. We hadn't just changed one company, we'd redefined an entire industry. TGR's inclusive talent framework became the new gold standard. Other consulting firms scrambled to replicate our methods, but few could match the depth of our conviction or the quality of our team. The world of consulting, once dominated by narrow, outdated definitions of excellence, was finally opening up. And the people who had been excluded for decades were now leading the charge. My revenge wasn't loud. It wasn't about titles or applause. It was systemic. It was the quiet, unshakable dismantling of the barriers that allowed mediocre gatekeepers to decide who was worthy of opportunity. And it ensured that no one like me would ever be overlooked again. Have you ever been underestimated only to prove everyone wrong? Share your story in the comments below. You never know who might need to hear it today. And if you found value in this journey of transformation, justice, and quiet revenge, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Every week we bring you real-life redemption stories that prove success isn't just the best revenge. It's the most lasting one.